A police officer, driven by prejudice, shot and killed a black teenager's German shepherd, claiming the dog was about to attack him. What he didn't know was that the boy's father was an FBI agent. When the truth came to light, the officer was left stunned. And the events that followed were nothing short of shocking. This is a story of injustice, loyalty, and a relentless fight for justice. It's a tale that will leave you questioning the abuse of power and the length some will go to protect what they hold dear. But before we get into the details, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories like this one. Now, let's begin. Jordan Mitchell was an 18-year-old with dreams as big as his heart. Growing up in a close-knit neighborhood, he was known for his quiet kindness and infectious smile. But life hadn't always been easy for Jordan. As a young black man, he was no stranger to the harsh realities of prejudice and inequality. Yet, despite the challenges, Jordan carried himself with a quiet strength, a resilience that inspired those around him. His father, Samuel Mitchell, was an FBI agent, a man of integrity and discipline. Samuel had always been Jordan's rock, teaching him the values of honesty, courage, and standing up for what's right. On Jordan's 18th birthday, Samuel decided to give his son a gift that would change his life forever. That morning, Jordan woke up to the sound of his father calling him downstairs. As he walked into the living room, his eyes widened in disbelief. Standing there, with a sleek black and brown coat and eyes full of intelligence, was a German shepherd. The dog's presence was commanding yet gentle, and Jordan felt an instant connection. "Happy birthday, son," Samuel said, his voice warm with pride. "This is your new companion. Take good care of him." Jordan was speechless. He had always dreamed of having a dog, but he never imagined it would happen on such a special day. He knelt down, and the dog immediately approached, nuzzling his hand. "Hey there, buddy," Jordan said softly, a wide grin spreading across his face. The name stuck Buddy. It was perfect. From that moment on, Jordan and Buddy became inseparable. Every morning, Jordan would wake up early to train Buddy, teaching him commands like sit, stay, and fetch. Buddy was a quick learner, and Jordan couldn't help but feel a surge of pride every time the dog executed a command perfectly. "You're so smart, Buddy," Jordan would say, ruffling the dog's fur. Buddy would wag his tail enthusiastically, his eyes sparkling as if he understood every word. Their afternoons were filled with playtime in the backyard. Jordan would throw a tennis ball as far as he could, and Buddy would dart after it like a bolt of lightning, bringing it back and dropping it at Jordan's feet. Sometimes Jordan would hide the ball behind his back, and Buddy would tilt his head, his curious eyes trying to figure out where it had gone. Those moments were filled with laughter and joy, the kind of pure happiness that only comes from the bond between a boy and his dog. Mia, Jordan's best friend and neighbor, often watched them from her yard. "You're so lucky, Jordan," she said one afternoon, leaning over the fence. "Buddy's not just smart, amazing. You two were meant to be together." Jordan beamed with pride. "Buddy's more than a dog, Mia. He's my best friend. I think we were meant to find each other." As the sun set each evening, Jordan and Buddy would sit on the front steps, enjoying the cool breeze. Jordan would stroke Buddy's soft fur, whispering his thoughts and dreams to the dog. "You know, Buddy, you're the best gift Dad's ever given me. I promise I'll always protect you just like you protect me." Buddy would let out a soft whine, resting his head on Jordan's leg, his eyes filled with understanding. The bond between Jordan and Buddy grew stronger with each passing day. They walked through the neighborhood together, practiced advanced training routines, and shared countless quiet moments. Buddy wasn't just a pet, there was family. But Jordan had no idea that their peaceful life was about to be shattered by an unimaginable event. An event that would test their bond, challenge their strength, and change their lives forever. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the quiet streets of Jordan's neighborhood. It was a day like any other, filled with the familiar sounds of chirping birds and the occasional hum of a passing car. Jordan and Buddy were out for their usual walk, enjoying the tranquility of the moment. Buddy trotted obediently beside Jordan, his tail wagging in rhythm with their step. The bond between them was unmistakable, a boy and his dog, united by trust and loyalty. As they turned onto Main Street, Jordan noticed a police patrol car slowly approaching. The car came to a stop near the curb, and the door swung open. Out stepped Officer Brad Wilson, a tall man with a stern expression and a reputation for arrogance. His cold gaze swept over Jordan and Buddy, lingering on the dog with an intensity that made Jordan uneasy. "Is this your dog?" Wilson asked, his tone sharp and dismissive. Jordan nodded, gripping Buddy's leash a little tighter. "Yes, officer. This is Buddy." Wilson raised an eyebrow, his eyes narrowing as he studied Buddy. "You sure about that? A dog like this doesn't come cheap. You didn't steal him, did you?" The accusation hit Jordan like a punch to the gut. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "No, sir. Buddy's my dog. My dad gave him to me for my birthday." Wilson smirked, his voice dripping with skepticism. "Your dad, huh? And who's your dad?" "He's an FBI agent," Jordan replied, his voice steady but firm. The officer's smirk widened, as if he found the idea laughable. "An FBI agent bought you a dog like this?" "Sure, kid. Prove it." Jordan knelt down, signaling Buddy to demonstrate the commands they had practiced so many times. "Sit," he said, and Buddy immediately obeyed, his eyes fixed on Jordan. "Stay." Buddy remained perfectly still, his gently wagging. Passers-by began to stop, their curiosity piqued by the unfolding scene. But Wilson wasn't impressed. His hand moved, gun on his hip, his expression hardening. "You think I'm going to let you use this dog to attack me?" he barked, his voice rising. Jordan's heart raced. "No, officer. Buddy's not attacking anyone. He's just scared." But Wilson wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on Buddy, his hand now gripping the gun. Buddy, sensing the tension, let out a loud bark, a protective instinct kicking in. Across the street, Mia, Jordan's neighbor and best friend, was walking home. She froze when she saw the confrontation, her eyes widening in alarm. Without hesitation, she pulled out her phone and began recording, her hands trembling slightly as she held the device steady. "Control your dog or I'll take action," Wilson shouted, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Jordan yanked on the leash, desperately trying to calm Buddy. "Please, officer. He's not dangerous." But Wilson's mind was made up. In his eyes, Jordan was just another black teenager with a large Doga combination that to him spelled trouble. Without warning, he drew his gun and fired. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the neighborhood, shattering the peaceful afternoon. Buddy let out a yelp, his legs buckling beneath him as he collapsed to the ground. Blood seeped from the wound, staining his sleek coat. "Buddy!" Jordan screamed, dropping to his knees beside his dog. Tears streamed down his face as he cradled Buddy's head in his hands. "No, no, no. Please, stay with me." Buddy's breaths were shallow, his eyes dimming as he looked up at Jordan one last time. The bond they shared, the love and loyalty that had defined their relationship, was slipping away with every passing second. From a distance, Mia continued to record, her own tears falling as she watched the heartbreaking scene unfold. She knew this video would be crucial. It was the only way to prove the truth. Wilson stood over them, his gun still in hand, his face devoid of remorse. "The dog was a threat," he said coldly. "I had no choice." Jordan looked up, his tear-streaked face filled with anger and grief. "You killed him? He wasn't hurting anyone." But Wilson didn't care. He grabbed Jordan by the arm, pulling him to his feet. "You're under arrest for harassing an officer," he said. cuffing Jordan's hands behind his back. As Jordan was dragged toward the patrol car, he glanced back at Buddy's lifeless body, his heart breaking all over again. The dog who had been his best friend, his protector, was gone, taken from him in an instant by a man who saw only prejudice and fear. The peaceful afternoon had turned into a nightmare, and Jordan knew his life would never be the same. The police station was cold and sterile, its fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow over the dim hallways. Jordan sat in a small holding cell, his hands cuffed to a metal bar on the table. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions: grief, anger, and a deep sense of helplessness. Buddy's lifeless body haunted his thoughts, the image of his loyal companion collapsing to the ground replaying over and over in his mind. "Buddy, I'm so sorry," Jordan whispered, his voice breaking. Tears streamed down his face as he replayed the moments they had shared, the training sessions, the playful afternoons, the quiet evenings on the front steps. Buddy had been more than a dog. He had been family. And now he was gone. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, pulling Jordan from his thoughts. The cell door opened, and an officer stepped inside, placing a phone on the table. "You've got one call," the officer said curtly, uncuffing one of Jordan's hands. "Make it quick." Jordan's hands trembled as he picked up the phone. He dialed the number he knew by heart, each press of the keypad feeling heavier than the last. After a few rings, his father's voice came through the line. "Jordan, are you okay? What's going on?" Samuel Mitchell's voice was filled with concern, his tone sharp and urgent. "Dad," Jordan choked out, his voice cracking. "They arrested me. They're saying I attacked an officer, but I didn't do anything. Buddy, they shot Buddy." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, followed by a deep, controlled breath. "Where are you?" Samuel asked, his voice steady but laced with anger. "I'm at the local police station," Jordan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, please, come get me." "I'm on my way," Samuel said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "Stay strong, son. We'll get through this." Samuel Mitchell had been in the middle of an important meeting at FBI headquarters when he received Jordan's call. The moment he heard the anguish in his son's voice, he knew something was terribly wrong. Without hesitation, he excused himself and rushed to his car, his mind racing with a mix of fear and determination. As Samuel sped toward the police station, his grip on the steering wheel tightened. He thought about Jordan's kind-hearted, resilient son and Buddy, the loyal dog who had brought so much joy into their lives. The thought of Buddy being shot, of Jordan being arrested for no reason, filled him with a burning rage. He vowed to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. When Samuel arrived at the station, his presence commanded immediate attention. He strode through the entrance, his FBI badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "I'm Samuel Mitchell," he announced, his voice firm and authoritative. "My son, Jordan Mitchell, is being held here. I want to know what's going on." The officer at the desk hesitated, glancing at his computer. "One moment, sir. I'll notify Captain Reed." As Samuel waited, Officer Brad Wilson appeared, his face calm but his eyes betraying a hint of unease. "Miss Johnson," Wilson said, his tone slightly mocking, "I assume you're here to discuss your son." Samuel didn't flinch. His gaze was fixed on Wilson, his eyes cold and piercing. "That's correct. I want to know why my son was arrested and why his dog was shot, and I want to see the evidence." Wilson shrugged, maintaining an air of nonchalance. "Your son ordered the dog to attack me. I was forced to defend myself. It's standard procedure." Samuel stepped closer, his voice lowering but growing sharper. "Defend yourself. A dog sitting calmly beside its owner is what you call a threat? If you think such excuses will convince me, you're mistaken." Turning to Captain Jason Reed, who had just entered with a serious expression, Samuel continued, "Captain Reed, I want to review the CCTV footage and all related evidence. If there's no transparency, I'll file a formal complaint about Officer Wilson's actions." Reed hesitated, glancing at Wilson before responding. "Of course, Agent Johnson. We are in the process of reviewing the incident. I'll arrange for you to see the security footage." Wilson stood still, but the confidence in his expression began to waver. He knew the CCTV footage might not fully support his version of events, but he tried to maintain his composure. As they waited for the video to be prepared, the atmosphere in the station grew tense. Some officers whispered among themselves, their eyes darting towards Samuel. They were keenly aware of his influence within the FBI and the potential consequences if the matter wasn't handled properly. When the footage began to play, the room fell silent. The video showed Jordan and Buddy walking peacefully down the street, followed by Wilson approaching, pulling out his gun and shooting Buddy without provocation. There was no indication that Buddy had posed any threat. Samuel turned to Wilson, his voice icy. "There's no indication whatsoever that Buddy attacked or threatened you. You pulled a gun and shot a dog that was sitting still. Now you're trying to justify your irresponsible actions by blaming my son." Wilson didn't respond. His face turned pale as the eyes of everyone in the room bore into him. The tension in the room thickened until the meeting room door suddenly opened. Mia entered, holding her phone firmly. "I have something you all need to see," she said, her voice resolute. Mia placed her phone on the table and played the video she had recorded. The angle, taken from a distance, was clearer than the CCTV footage and included sound that captured the entire exchange: Jordan's trembling voice as he tried to explain, Wilson's aggressive tone, and the sharp sound of the gunshot. The room fell into a heavy silence. There was no room for excuses or justifications anymore. Samuel turned to Wilson, his gaze as cold as ice. "Well, do you have anything else to say?" Wilson opened his mouth to speak, but couldn't form any words. His weak defenses had been entirely dismantled by the undeniable images and audio. Captain Reed addressed Wilson with a firm voice. "Wilson, you've not only violated protocol but also jeopardized the reputation of this entire team. You're hereby suspended immediately. We will launch a full investigation into your actions." Samuel took a deep breath, his gaze softening slightly as he turned to Mia. "Thank you," he said, his voice low but sincere. "This video will be critical in proving Jordan's innocence." Mia nodded, her eyes glancing toward Jordan, still sitting in the holding cell, completely unaware of what was unfolding outside. "We won't stop here," Samuel continued, his sharp gaze returning to Reed. "The truth must come to light, and justice must be served not just for my son, but for Buddy, a loyal dog whose life was taken by this officer's irresponsibility." Reed nodded, his tone serious. "Agent Johnson, you have my commitment. We'll fully cooperate to ensure this case is handled correctly." The CCTV footage and Mia's video had exposed the full truth. Wilson's aggressive and reckless behavior not only caused Buddy's tragic death, but also subjected Jordan to undeserved pain and injustice. Yet now, with irrefutable evidence, the Johnson family's faith in fairness and justice was strengthened. Samuel knew the fight wasn't over, but he also understood they had taken a significant step in their journey to reclaim justice for Jordan and Buddy. The days following the trial were a blur for Jordan. The weight of Buddy's loss still pressed heavily on his heart, but the verdict had brought a sense of closure, a small glimmer of light in the darkness. The courtroom had been packed with neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had followed the case, all united in their support for Jordan and their demand for justice. When the judge declared Officer Brad Wilson guilty of unnecessary use of force and abuse of power, the room erupted in a wave of relief and applause. Jordan sat quietly, tears streaming down his face as the reality sank in. Buddy's death had not been in vain. The truth had prevailed, and Wilson would face the consequences of his actions. As Jordan and his father, Samuel, exited the courthouse, they were met with an unexpected sight. A crowd had gathered outside, neighbors, friends, and even people Jordan didn't recognize. They held signs that read, "Justice for Buddy," and "We stand with Jordan." The outpouring of support was overwhelming. An elderly woman who had often seen Jordan and Buddy on their walks stepped forward and took Jordan's hand. "You've done so well," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You deserve justice. And so does Buddy." Others approached, offering words of encouragement and gratitude. Mia, Jordan's best friend, and the one who had recorded the crucial video, was surrounded by people thanking her for her bravery. "You saved the day," one person said, handing her a bouquet of flowers. Mia smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. Jordan watched the scene unfold, his heart swelling with gratitude. He turned to Mia and said, "You deserve this. You stood up for the truth when it mattered most." Mia hugged him tightly. "We did it together, Jordan. Buddy would be proud." That evening, Jordan and his family decided to hold a small memorial for Buddy in their backyard. The setting was simple, but heartfelt. Strings of fairy lights hung around the fence, and a table adorned with flowers and photos of Buddy stood at the center. Jordan had chosen a picture of Buddy mid-run, his sleek coat glistening in the sunlight, his eyes bright with joy. As friends and neighbors gathered, the atmosphere was a mix of solemn reflection and quiet celebration of Buddy's life. Mr. Sanders, the elderly neighbor who had always admired Buddy, approached Jordan and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Buddy wasn't just a dog," he said, his voice deep and heartfelt. "He was a little hero. What he did for you will never be forgotten." Mrs. Ruth, the local grocer, brought a small cake decorated with an image of a dog and icing. She set it on the table and said, "Buddy was always so well behaved when you took him on walks. He truly was special." Mia stepped forward with a carefully wrapped frame. Inside was a photograph of Jordan and Buddy. From a bright afternoon, Buddy standing tall with his ears perked, and Jordan crouching beside him with a radiant smile. "I found this picture and thought your family might want to keep it," she said softly. Jordan picked up the frame, staring at it in silence. A tear rolled down his cheek. But this time, it was one of gratitude rather than grief. "Thank you, Mia," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's beautiful." As the memorial continued, people took turns sharing fond memories of Buddy. Jordan stood up, holding the frame in his hands, his voice trembling but full of emotion. "Buddy wasn't just a dog," he began. "He was the most loyal friend I've ever had. He protected me, brought me joy, and taught me the meaning of loyalty and love. Even though Buddy is no longer here, I know he will always live in our hearts." Samuel stepped forward, placing a hand on Jordan's shoulder. "Buddy was a part of our family," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "Today, we are not only here to remember him, but to honor the love and loyalty he brought into our lives." The memorial concluded with everyone releasing small candles into the gentle stream that ran through the backyard. The flickering lights floated away, symbolizing a final farewell to Buddy. Jordan bowed his head and whispered, "Buddy, you will always be my best friend. I promise I'll never forget you." As the candles disappeared into the distance, Jordan felt a sense of peace. The pain of losing Buddy would never fully go away, but the love and memories they had shared would remain a guiding light in his life. In the weeks that followed, Samuel used his position as an FBI agent to push for reforms within the local police force. He worked with Captain Reed and other officials to organize training programs aimed at addressing biases and improving conflict resolution. "We can't change the past," Samuel said during a meeting, but we can ensure that tragedies like this never happen again. Jordan, inspired by Buddy's memory, began participating in social initiatives, especially programs supporting children and teens facing adversity. He shared his story about his friendship with Buddy and the lessons he had learned about loyalty and courage. "I want people to understand that no matter how hard life gets, we can always find hope and healing," Jordan said during a talk with a group of young people. One afternoon, under the gentle sunlight in the backyard, Jordan prepared a small ceremony to bid Buddy a final farewell. Family, Mia, and close neighbors gathered for the occasion. Jordan stood in the center of the yard, holding a cluster of blue balloons, the color he imagined Buddy would have loved. One special balloon bore Buddy's image, symbolizing the loyal companion who would forever remain in Jordan's heart. "Buddy," Jordan said, his voice breaking but filled with determination. "Thank you for being with me, for teaching me what loyalty, love, and bravery mean. You will always be my best friend." As he released the balloons into the sky, everyone watched them float higher and farther away, carrying with them the love and beautiful memories Jordan shared with Buddy. Though sadness lingered, it no longer weighed Jordan down. Instead, it became a driving force for him to live on and spread the values Buddy had taught him. Samuel stepped up, placing a hand on Jordan's shoulder. "You've done well, son. Buddy would be proud of you." Jordan smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the sky. "I think he's up there," looking down and smiling. Standing among family and friends, Jordan felt the golden light of the setting sun on his face, not just the glow of dusk, but the light of hope. Buddy's loss was not just a tragedy, but the beginning of meaningful change and actions to ensure justice and kindness prevail. Jordan knew that although Buddy was no longer by his side, the dog had left behind a precious legacy, a belief in love, loyalty, and the strength to overcome any challenge. The story of Jordan and Buddy is one that will stay with us for a long time. It's a story of love, loyalty, and the unyielding fight for justice. It's a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, there is hope, and that hope can lead to healing, change, and a brighter future. As we reflect on this journey, it's impossible not to feel the weight of the emotions it carries. The bond between Jordan and Buddy was something extraordinary, a connection that went beyond words. Buddy wasn't just a dog, he was a friend, a protector, and a source of unwavering love. His loss was a tragedy, but his legacy lives on in the lessons he taught and the lives he touched. Jordan's courage in the face of injustice is something we can all learn from. He stood up for what was right, even when the odds were against him. With the support of his father, Samuel, and the bravery of his friend Mia, Jordan was able to bring the truth to light and ensure that Buddy's death was not in vain. The community's response to this story is a testament to the power of unity and compassion. From the moment Buddy was taken, people came together to support Jordan and his family. They showed up at the courthouse, attended Buddy's memorial, and stood by Jordan as he fought for justice. Their actions remind us that even in the darkest times, we are never truly alone. Samuel Mitchell's efforts to reform the police force and Jordan's involvement in social initiatives show that this story is more than just a moment in time, it's a catalyst for change. By addressing biases and promoting fairness, they are working to ensure that no one else has to endure the pain Jordan experienced. Their actions are a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and compassionate world. As we close this chapter, let's take a moment to honor Buddy's memory. He may no longer be with us, but his spirit lives on in the love he gave and the lessons he taught. Jordan's journey is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of love to overcome even the greatest challenges. If this story has touched you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever faced loss or injustice? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might inspire someone else who is going through a difficult time. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful and inspiring stories like this one. Together, we can keep the conversation going and continue to spread messages of hope, resilience, and justice. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. We'll see you in the next video.